How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my presentation. Thank you for being here today. Before I get started, I am actually pinch hitting for my colleague, Cheeky Gorilla. That's not his actual name. He's just a privacy aficionado. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and say, get well soon, Cheeky, because he injured himself just a week before Denver. 1, 2, 3, get well soon, Cheeky, please. Get well soon, Cheeky. All right, cool. That was close. Sweet. Well, thank you for being here. My name is Peter Vecchiarelli. I'm here to talk to you about Protocol Guild. Protocol Guild is an on-chain funding institution for Ethereum core protocol contributors. Before I talk about Protocol Guild, though, let's talk about Ethereum, and specifically, what is Ethereum even? I bet that if I were to ask 10 of you, if there are 10 of you out there, I'd probably get at least 5 different responses. Some of you might describe it as an infinite garden or ultrasound money. Others might describe it as a settlement layer or maybe even Bitcoin plus smart contracts. All of those are right to some extent. There's so many ways to describe Ethereum precisely because there are so many ways to use it. And to that extent, we can kind of think of Ethereum as a commons, like forests or fisheries. And commons refer to shared resources, or areas that are accessible to and used by the public. But unfortunately, like all commons, these resources can be abused. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the tragedy of the commons, which is when individuals act in their self-interest, depleting shared resources to the detriment of everyone else. So that's why we have an image of Moloch here, who is a symbol of coordination failure for Ethereum. He's holding up a tweet from one of Protocol Guild's, our favorite critics, Amin. And Amin in this tweet is bemoaning kind of the lack of adequate funding for Ethereum core protocol development. And the problem that he's highlighting is that existing funding for Ethereum core protocol work only provides a fraction of the financial incentive compared to similar work in the ecosystem. And so we have this weird situation where we have a small subset of core contributors that have this specialized domain knowledge, but are simultaneously both underpaid and securing hundreds of billions of dollars in value. And that's not great, right? Because that means ultimately it's not economically rational to do core protocol work in the moment. And you can see this visually represented in the chart, which shows that Ethereum's core protocol work, while relatively low risk, you know, Ethereum is Lindy, it's big, it's going to be here for a while, it's still relatively low reward as well. It also shows how these core developers, by taking on just a little bit more career risk, can actually earn significantly more. And this is not to say that these individuals are, you know, solely or even primarily motivated by financial rewards. You know, they are motivated by working on hard problems and working with individuals that they respect. But oftentimes these properties are available in other opportunities in the space as well. And you're probably not surprised to hear it. There's a lot of money in the Ethereum ecosystem, but these developers are able to routinely get high 6, low 7-figure compensation offers elsewhere in the ecosystem due to that specialized knowledge. And of course, they're not earning anywhere near that working on the protocol right now. And so why does any of this matter? Well, Ethereum is very far from being done. Most of you are probably familiar with the roadmap, but of course beyond the present roadmap, there's a future roadmap. And essentially, this is kind of an unsolved question, which is how do we fund core protocol development into the future? To be able to execute on that roadmap, it's imperative that we continue to onboard and retain talented core protocol contributors. So that raises an existential question for Ethereum. How do we rebalance these financial incentives to make Ethereum core protocol work economically rational on a risk-adjusted basis? There's a couple options. So what about altruism, right? Can we rely on individuals to fund this out of the goodness of their hearts? You know, this is Ethereum, so there are some examples of that. Back in 2018, one of the core developers, Preston Van Loon, who works on Prism, kind of bemoaned the lack of funding publicly. Some random guy on Twitter came by and gave him 1,000 ETH, which is $100,000 US dollars at the time. And that's really cool. But is this scalable, sustainable? Can we rely on this into the future? We think not. What about making ETH holders pay? There's been talk of this before, proposals around this before. This is something that blockchains like Polkadot do, so why not? Well, we believe it's not incredibly neutral. Ethereum is about giving power back to the people, and that should not include forcing a paycheck for developers into every single block. And given Ethereum's governance process, it would take a while to undo this kind of change if we ultimately decided it wasn't a good idea. Protocol changes can't just be made willy-nilly, and that is absolutely a feature and not a bug. And there's got to be a better way to do this. So we think, what about building and constructing social norms? The band myth legend Danny Ryan back in 2021 tweeted calling for projects on Ethereum to allocate a portion of their tokens to the individuals working on Ethereum's core protocol. And this was very prescient. A lot of the things he said in this 2021 tweet make a lot of sense. He's talking about targeting individuals and not teams, meaning the funding goes directly to support the people doing the work. It gives those individuals exposure to the value being created in the ecosystem via tokens. And it's a cost that's borne by the projects themselves who have a dependency on Ethereum and not by ETH users or users of Ethereum or ETH holders. And finally, if projects were to do this, if all projects or a critical mass of projects do this, then there's a low risk of capture and undue influence, and this could be a sustainable paradigm over time. But we're missing a puzzle piece. You know, we want to establish this social norm, and at the end, we profit. And profit in this sense means that we rebalance incentives for core protocol work. So the open question is, how do we design a mechanism which distributes tokens to protocol contributors in a way that's sufficiently fair, accurate, and maintains credible neutrality? You probably understand what I'm going to say, or you probably could guess what I'm going to talk about. Protocol Guild. That is the solution. And for those that are unfamiliar with Protocol Guild, we are trying to make Ethereum core protocol work economically rational on a risk-adjusted basis. And to understand Protocol Guild, you need to understand its two components. The first is a membership registry, and the second, a funding mechanism. The registry is essentially a list of Ethereum's active core protocol contributors represented on-chain. Today there are around 188 individuals in the membership registry represented from all across the world, and you can see their names in the background here. And you might be wondering, how does one become eligible for Protocol Guild membership? What does it mean to be an active core protocol contributor? Well, essentially that means you're doing one of a few things. Working on research, doing client development, or doing something that supports one of those two things, like spec work or testing, DevOps, and coordination work. And here's some of the examples of the team that Protocol Guild members are, the teams that Protocol Guild members are a part of. You probably heard of some of them: Geth, Reth, Nethermind, Cat Herders. But I should clarify that Protocol Guild membership is centered around individuals and not teams. So if you've been hired by one of those teams and you continue to work on Ethereum's core protocol after you've quit, but you continue doing the work and the membership wants to maintain you on the list, you can still be eligible for Protocol Guild membership, which we think is a really cool feature. When I say active, let's quantify what active means in this sense. To be eligible for Protocol Guild membership, you must have contributed continuously for at least 6 months prior to being eligible. The average member on Protocol Guild's registry has 3.3 years of contribution to Ethereum, and the oldest member has been here from the start, with over 10 years. As a collective, Protocol Guild members have contributed over 600 years to Ethereum core protocol development. That's why we can confidently say that Protocol Guild is a membership registry of the individuals who are stewarding Ethereum core protocol development. So you might be wondering, how is this list actually updated? Well, the Protocol Guild membership registry is self-curated, and that makes sense because Protocol Guild members have the highest context. If this list is to have legitimacy, it needs to be accurate. Ultimately, external entities don't have the context to track the contributions over time. On the other hand, Protocol Guild members, due to the very nature of their work, are they have the necessary context and they have the necessary domain expertise to give the strong assurances that this list will be accurate over time. So what's the net result of this? At this point, we've made the entire set of Ethereum's core protocol contributors directly legible on-chain. And so where does rebalancing incentive comes in? Well, that's the funding mechanism. So we built a funding mechanism around this membership registry that has 3 components. The first is a single donation address. So to abstract away the complexity of donating to many individuals, all you have to do is send funds to one address. And it's all happening on chain. It's totally transparent, meaning anyone can see who donated. You can track the funds to verify they're actually going to Ethereum Core Protocol contributors. And when the tokens are donated, they actually vest over 4 years. They go to an immutable vesting contract, which vests linearly over 4 years. And this is because that is kind of the common stock option compensation package that's been popularized in Silicon Valley. And we also think that that provides a strong incentive for members to stick around in the long term. So once the tokens are vested, they are distributed to membership. We use a neutral weighting formula, which is time weighting. So the longer you've been contributing to core protocol work, the higher your weight in the membership. And there is a square root function to kind of compress the deviation between the newest and the oldest members. And we understand this is not perfect, right? We're looking at potential ways to assess impact and things like that, but ultimately this mechanism is super neutral. And so for all those reasons, we think it's sufficient to say that we built a funding mechanism that is simple and transparent, which creates strong incentives to onboard and retain contributors over the long term, and enables the Ethereum ecosystem to fund its dependencies. And that last point is really important because it brings us back to this concept of social norms. And the norm that we are really trying to construct right now is this concept called the Protocol Guild Pledge. How many of you are familiar with the Protocol Guild Pledge? Cool. Any projects that have taken it in attendance or planning on taking it? If not, if you'd like to speak with me afterwards, I would love to speak with you about it. I expect to see more hands next year. The Protocol Guild Pledge is essentially a commitment of 1% of a project's token supply to Protocol Guild. So let's unpack that. Why are we asking for native tokens? We think by donating native tokens, you're giving Ethereum's core protocol contributors access to a diversified basket of funds that represents the value being created in the ecosystem, and thus you give them access to the upside of that activity and those tokens, and they can participate in that upside while they stay focused on core protocol work. So why are we asking for 1%? Ultimately because it normalizes the contributions. Not every project is able to give $100 million, but every project is able to give 1% if they have a token. It's also easy to pledge. All you have to do is tweet it out. And yeah, we did some math, and we think that if enough projects give 1%, that we can provide sufficient funding to these contributors into the future. This is, of course, assuming that more projects release tokens, valuable tokens on Ethereum into the future. So why take the pledge? I hope it's self-evident by now, but if you're building on Ethereum in any way, you have a dependency on Ethereum's core protocol development. And so by taking the pledge, you're helping to rebalance these incentives, make a more resilient Ethereum, and scale Ethereum's values. You've probably heard the expression public goods are good. Ethereum core protocol development is a foundational public good. So you're helping to support that. And how do you pledge? It's super easy. You just tweet it out. So you can see some of the projects that have taken the pledge. Huge shout out to like EtherFi, Tyco, PwnDAO, a number of others. One caveat, if you do tweet out that you're going to take the pledge, please do follow through. Yeah, are we economically rational yet? Have we actually rebalanced those incentives? Well, we're getting there. We've been around for just over 3 years. In that time, we've received over 8,000 total individual donations, totaling over 180 million at the time of donation. The vast majority of that is coming from around 3 projects, EigenLayer, EtherFi, and Tyco, all of whom took the pledge. As you can see in our donor leaderboard, we have a number of donations across the ecosystem. And I know your thing is like, do we need any more funding? We have 180 million. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of work to do, and let me quantify that for you real quick. So, like I said, we have over 180 core protocol contributors. The funds vest over 4 years, and while $79,000, which is our median, what will vest to the median member over the next 12 years, is a lot of money. We still have a long way to go to really rebalance those incentives and close that gap that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I'm coming up on time here, so I'm gonna quickly cycle through these last slides. But yeah, we're trying to make Ethereum core protocol development economically rational. We're trying to create stability in the core protocol contributor set and stability of a funding institution for those individuals into the future. Thank you.